Night owls. What is the creepiest thing happened to you when everyone else was sleeping? 1. My partner works overnight, so I'm up during the night often. My experiences include a group of teenage girls just sitting in our backyard and watching a toddler play in the street alone around 3 a.m. I called the police. The toddler was safely taken home. My creepier experiences actually occurred more around 5 to 6 a.m., with the sun up, when you'd think people would be a little less willing to be creepy. Once around 5:30 a.m. I felt watched, and glanced up to see a man peeking through the gap in our blinds. He bolted away. Another time, my partner told me he'd be home in under 5 minutes, so I unlocked our front door. A man who was in the process of crossing the street looked up and grinned at me like I'd opened up just for him. He made a beeline for our house and I slammed and locked the door so fast. He was definitely a different man than Blind's peeker. Once, around 3 a.m., our power went out for like 20 seconds and the sky lit up bright as day and flashed all the colors of the rainbow. I thought I imagined it, but I heard someone down the street scream, "What the fucking quat?" I assume a transformer blew somewhere or something. I can't think of any other explanation. 2. I was up late playing video games in the house alone around 3 in the morning. My dad was working the late shift, and came home in the morning, but sometimes he'd come home for lunch break halfway through the night, grab a quick bite, and head back out. I heard the front door unlock, open up, and someone step into the house. I paused the game and I yelled down the hall, "Hey dad, and quat." He always responded, but this time he didn't. I yelled down the hall again, "Dad, that you?" No response. My heart sank into my stomach, and I was frozen in fear. I sat there for a few seconds, and then stood up. I slowly walked down the hall to the front door. The door was locked, deadbolt and all. I flipped on all the lights and started searching every area of the house, scared to death someone came in and was hiding in my house. I couldn't find anyone. In the morning, I asked my dad if he came home, but turned around and immediately left, but he said no. He brought lunch with him that night and didn't come home to eat. I still think about that night over 10 years later. I can't explain what happened. I heard the lock, the door, footsteps clear as crystal, but no one came in. I can't explain it. 3. Someone tried to open the front door of the house. It was around 2 to 3 a.m. and sometimes people in the house forget to lock. Safe to say, I couldn't sleep the whole night. 4. I had the worst insomnia during COVID lockdown. Every night around 2 to 3 a.m., a red truck would park in my driveway and just sit there. The guy would chat on the phone and then leave. My house's driveway was not easy to access, making it unusual for someone to just park there. Super weird. 5. When my husband was out of town a few years ago, I think our home was being cased. People kept showing up in the middle of the night and ringing our doorbell. One was this really cracked out lady who wouldn't leave and kept saying she just moved there and wanted to make friends for emergency contacts or something. The other one that was really weird was a guy claiming he was a cop but was dressed as a normal guy and kept pressing me to know if a specific lady who I'd never heard of lived with us. After my husband came back, we installed cameras and the night visits stopped. All happened after 10 p.m. 6. When I was 11, I couldn't sleep one night because I was sick. I heard something at my bedroom window. I ran out of the room to wake up my mom. She told me to stop being paranoid and go back to bed. Instead, I went to the back door and turned on the porch light that was on the same wall as my bedroom window. Next day, I went outside to check my window, and there were 2 boot tracks just below my window. 7. I'm a female, for reference. I used to clean movie theaters. Our shifts would start at 2 a.m. On a slow weekday night, I decided to go out and pick up the trash in the parking lot, around 4 to 5 a.m. The theater was also next to a super busy road, so people passing by could see into the parking lot clear as day. I had headphones in and a grabby thing in my hand to pick up gross stuff, when I suddenly get a call from my boss who is inside the building. She tells me she just saw a truck pull into the parking lot on the opposite side of me, and we weren't expecting any vendors today. As she says this, the truck pulls up next to me and stops, as a man starts to open the door. There was a clear moment when he started to lean out and then saw that I was on a phone call. I had my screen facing him because I was talking to my boss through the headphones, and the grabby thing over my shoulder like a baseball bat. He sees my hands, then looks up at me and says, "Looks like it might snow today and quat." Then closes his door and drives off. 8. I was staying at an Airbnb and had to sleep on the sofa couch in the living room. The microwave in the nearby kitchen kept randomly turning on until I finally disconnected it. 9. I looked out my window and a man was looking in through it at the same time. 10. I had no idea what sound foxes make, even regularly. I was up past the family's bedtime when suddenly there was this intermittent shrieking right outside my bedroom window. Literally right outside it, as apparently the fox had made a bit of a den in this overgrown bush just below it. Sounded like an old lady having a mental crisis and shrieking at my window. 11. When I was a new mom, we visited my grandma's rural lake cottage several states away after she died. It was a small, 2-story structure, with the bedrooms being situated on the second floor. My son was only about 4 to 6 weeks old, so I was worried that he would keep my other family members awake at night with needing to be fed, being new to the world, etc. Well, the inevitable happened, and my son would not stop fussing in the middle of the night. I decided to go outside with my little guy to get a bit of fresh air. The cottage had burned down to the chimney a couple of years earlier, and the house had been rebuilt, so I wasn't familiar with its new bits and parts yet. I went outside and apparently locked myself out. The door was unlocked from the inside, but the outside lock was already engaged. Now here I am, in the middle of nowhere, locked out of the house at 3 a.m. with a newborn. I knocked on, and tried the door again and could not get it to open. I even threw pebbles, and then rocks at my husband's window, all to no avail. As I sat outside the door, my back leaning against it, about to lose it completely, I heard a click. It was the sound of the door unlocking. The same door that I had tried dozens and dozens of times to open simply unlocked. Everyone was still soundly asleep and didn't recall hearing any noises at all in the morning. The door had a window, and I could see the entirety of the bottom floor through it. No one was there, but it unlocked for me. 12. I was 11 or 12 at the time, in my room alone at night. I don't remember what I was doing. The window was open behind the blinds. I heard two men's voices right outside, and one says, "Not now, she's still awake and quiet." 13. On a cross-country road trip with a couple friends, we were camping to save money on hotels. We didn't bring a tent, we just threw a tarp over the bed of the pickup truck and slept back there. I have a very hard time falling asleep, especially when I'm not in my own bed, so I was still awake long after my buddies had passed out. While I was laying there, the only one awake amidst a calm and quiet night, I started getting this feeling, like a sinking feeling in my gut. Thought maybe I was hungry, went into the truck and grabbed some snacks, then tried again to fall asleep. I drifted off for a bit, but when I woke up suddenly, that feeling was still there, but worse. It wasn't hunger, it was that deep in your gut, something is very wrong here feeling. But nothing was wrong. I tried again to ignore the feeling and go to sleep. I probably got an hour or so of sleep and then yet again, woke up suddenly. All kinds of alarm bells were ringing now. I remember feeling shaky and nauseous at this point. I had no idea why, but my body was in full fight or flight mode. At this point, I didn't care if they thought I was crazy. I woke up my friends and told them we needed to leave. Now, I was able to convince them and we left in a hurry. I told them I'd explain in the morning. We found another campground down the road to crash for the night. But that's not even the weirdest part. After we all fell asleep at the second campground, I was sleeping peacefully, only to be woken up by my friends shaking me and telling me we need to leave again. The second I open my eyes, I'm completely overwhelmed by the worst feeling of dread imaginable. My buddies both looked totally freaked out as well, and were practically trying to pick me up and throw me in the truck cabin. There's nothing around us that should be making us feel that way, but my God, it felt like death itself was staring us down. We got out of there as fast as we could and drove several hours until we reached a large town and got a hotel. That was the end of it. We never figured out what the hell was going on. My friend thought we were being followed at one point during the drive, but I don't know honestly, and probably never will. By far, the weirdest night I've ever had. 14. I was driving across the country by myself, early 20s female at the time. I pulled into a remote rest stop area to sleep. I was walking around after sunset enjoying the night air, when this inner voice said, "Get in your car now." I ran to the car and was filled with intense dread and anxiety. Again, a voice in my head said, "Close all the windows and lie on the floor. And quiet." I did so, stifling in the heat. A car pulled into the rest stop, drove around slowly, and then left. I stayed down for about 45 minutes, when suddenly everything felt okay. Thank God for my inner voice. Looking back at it, I was naively being really foolish. But this was back when we thought the world was safe. 15. Once at an Airbnb, I woke up and saw two men standing at the foot of the bed, wearing all black and masks. They were there 100% in my mind. I was filled with dread. Then I woke up again. Didn't tell my girlfriend about the dream until we left so that she didn't freak out. I've never had another dream like that again. 16. I swore I saw a figure standing over me when I woke up to a bump in the night. I didn't have my glasses on, so I was really groggy. But when I tried to lift myself out of bed, it felt like I couldn't. I said stop loudly and watched the shadow move away and towards the open closet. I had to wake up my brother in the next room over. He said it was my imagination and probably some night terror, and proceeded to close the closet. Ever since then, I get super paranoid with closets. 17. I was in the Navy and became really good friends with this other guy. We went to West Virginia to visit his family at his childhood home. A few of his other friends came over, and were staying the night as well. Me and him shared his queen bed in his basement bedroom, where it was very dark. I woke up in the middle of the night and clearly saw a dark figure pacing back and forth at the foot of the bed. It scared the living hell out of me, and I thought it was one of his friends being creepy, so I pretended to be asleep. Eventually, I sat up to confront what I thought was his friend, but nobody was there. In the morning, I told my friend about it and he looked terrified. He made me go tell his mom because apparently, he had seen the same thing repeatedly when he was a kid and his mom wouldn't believe him. Still creeps me out years later thinking about it. 18. I was up late in the living room of my parents' house writing a paper for school. My boyfriend at the time was living with us in a room off the living room and down at the end of a hallway. Closest to the door into the living room from said hallway was a bathroom and another bedroom. So I'm writing this paper and I look away from it a bit to take a mental break. It's like 2 a.m. at this point. Some motion catches my eye, so I glance up at the door leading into the hallway and I see a face peeking partially through the doorway from the hall, and then the person runs fast and jumps behind the love seat next to me. So I'm thinking, oh, that's my boyfriend trying to scare me because he knows I'm up late and distracted. I get up and peek behind the love seat saying, ha ha, really funny, but I saw you ... and quat. Nobody was there. So I stand there puzzled a minute, wondering where could he have gone without me seeing. And then I hear his bedroom door open and he goes walking half asleep down the hall and into the bathroom. 19. I heard a child's laugh outside at around 5 a.m. or so while I was on the computer a few years ago. 2 giggles, a few seconds apart. There weren't any other voices or sounds like footsteps. Haven't heard anything like it since. I've heard raccoons before and it didn't sound anything like that. 20. Some person was banging on the window at 3:13 a.m. and only stopped when I opened the curtains to look for the window knocker. 21. It was 3 or 4 in the morning and I was playing a computer game in the family room. The way the family room is set up, the door to my backyard is to my back and slight right while I'm sitting at the computer desk. Now, my parents are terrible at locking doors. For some reason, I turned around and I see the back doorknob turning very slowly. My instinct was to drop to the floor and commando crawl to the bathroom nearby. The intruder must have seen me because they didn't enter. This was before cell phones, so they must have thought I was crawling away to get to a phone or get help. I stayed in that dark bathroom for what seemed like forever and just listened. The next day no one believed me, but I know what I saw. 22. One night, I was staying at my grandparents' house upstairs in the spare bedroom. It was probably 5 a.m. when my closed door flung open. I thought one of them were just playing a joke, so I went with it and ran to see who it was, only to see no one there. I didn't sleep at all that night. And lastly, 23, my house was in a rural area, dead center of a 20-acre plot. The surrounding plots were farmland used for livestock that nobody lived on. The nearest neighbor was over a mile away. I was downstairs watching TV late at night and someone walked past a window and looked in for a second. I woke everyone up and we went outside looking for the man I saw. We found nothing. Years later, I was going through old pictures with my grandmother and saw the same man. He was the old groundskeeper and he had died 10 years before I even lived there. Which one was your favorite? What's your own story of being awake by yourself late at night? Remember to subscribe if you've listened this far.